Your background, your experience here in Washington, you have an acute understanding of how things operate in Washington.
I wouldn't claim that, but thanks for giving me the credit.
It's in its own peculiar way here, and on Election Day, this is probably a good time to reflect on how, and we were wondering among ourselves how things would play out in the next few years. But the relationship between the White House and Congress and the media among themselves is sometimes filled with tension. But when Saudi Arabia looks at how these actors work to achieve American policy, especially regarding the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, how would you describe how Saudi Arabians see what happens here in Washington? Is there a common wisdom, a conventional wisdom as to how to approach understanding Washington from the Saudi point of view?
I think for me it is still a work in progress, how to understand America. And from that context, I have a very disturbing concern about these present elections in America. And I don't know if it is justifiable or not, because we saw the Obama election for president as at least I saw it in many ways as a rejection of previous administration policy on many issues. And hopefully I had thought, including on the way that the Middle East was being treated. And when Mr. Obama made his initial gestures and expressed his initial words in his new administration, seemed to confirm to me that view, that the Obama presidency is going to be different from the Bush presidency as far as the Middle East is concerned. And of course, there was, I could see within the Washington Beltway, as it is described by people here, a reaction, immediate reaction to President Obama's new thrust on the Middle East, which was in many cases, particularly among those who had championed Israel's positions in the past, a very negative reaction to this new attention and direction that Mr. Obama seemed to be taking. Alas, there was a backtracking on the part of Mr. Obama and his team when it came to the issue of what I prefer to call colonies instead of settlements, and other such issues, without commensurate extension of recognition, if you like, of Arab concerns. Not enough praise, for example, I think, has been given to Mahmoud Abbas. Not enough effort was put on the table to allow him to accomplish things on the ground for his people so that he can take credit for them. The Israelis were left to do according to their devices. And it was basically a Palestinian effort on the part of Mahmoud Abbas and Salam Fayyad that really built up this institutionalization of the Palestinian authorities' polity in the West Bank particularly, etc. So the election, today's election, in my view, depending on how badly the Democrats do, is going to have a reflection on the Middle East. If they do extra badly, I think it will be the worst solution or the worst situation for the Middle East, because people will say, and pundits will come out and say, aha, there is a rejection there for the Obama rhetoric, if not his substance, and we must go back to our tried and tested positions of the previous administration, etc.
Without looking at it from the perspective that Americans see the election as a referendum on the economy, they see it
They will interpret it in their own way. You will have newspaper people, you will have think tank spokesmen, experts between quotation marks, who will immediately, capture the public ground on that issue and proclaim that this is the interpretation of the election on that specific issue. And that's where I think things will get even dicier for us in the Arab world, and more particularly for Palestine. Because definitely the new Congress, if it comes with that view in mind, will be even less willing to go along with President Obama, who wants to see the final solution, if you like, and I'm not using that in historic terms, but rather as a description of where we want to reach, on the Middle East.
When you became ambassador to the United States, one of the things you said up front was that your mission that the King sent you here with was to engage Congress, and that people need not read signals, that if they had questions they should just ask you directly, and that you made it your mission to work to help bring information to the Congress. In retrospect, how did that go? Was there any accomplishments to be made? It's difficult to discern looking from the outside.
I think we had the beginnings of movement. I remember when I came as ambassador, and since 2001, September 11th, the number of congressional visitors to the kingdom dropped from a height in the early 90s during the Gulf War, liberation of Kuwait, from literally, I think, 200 congressmen and women visiting the kingdom in 1 year, or even in those 6 months of the crisis, to something in the years from 2001 to 2005, when I became ambassador, of I think it was 12 in totality, over 5 years. So there was a significant drop in the number of visitors from Congress, and not just from Congress, but even from congressional staffers. There was another equally dramatic drop in the number of congressional staffers. And I remember urging, on my visits to the Congress people, men and women and their staffers, to do that. Since I left office, of course, and went back to the kingdom, I've seen that, at least in the case of the number of staffers, there's been a significant increase in the number of staffers visiting the kingdom, because generally they would come and call on me at the King Faisal Center for Research and Islamic Studies. And I've seen scores, if not more than that, of congressional staffers visiting the kingdom. I still haven't seen members of Congress, either Senate or Congress, coming in significant numbers, but I hope that as time goes by, and as things like what happened recently over this parcel issue, when Saudi Arabia no longer becomes a radioactive item on congressional members, and after this election is over, and people at least for a year or a year and a half will be comfortable in taking trips, perhaps to countries like Saudi Arabia.
Curious what is happening.
Yeah.